Well, my toilet just kicked my ass.
Should that be the other way around?
My ass kicking the toilet?
Yeah.
I don't know. You were here. We were just reiterating for the listeners. I installed a fancy butt scrubber. Bidet. I finally just got one of those because I thought that'd be cool. Got a hot water one. And my sink hot water thing, the valve was broken off. I just moved into this house. I did not know that. And I couldn't turn it off. And so now it's just ice cold water that shoots up your bum hole. Not as pleasant, especially in the wintertime. So, yeah, I don't know how to fix that. I mean, I could figure it out, but I don't really want to. Hurt my thumb. Hurt it bad. There was blood. So, you finished Sleeping Beauties yesterday, right?
No.
You finished the Time Machine.
I did finish the Time Machine. And just for you, because I know you're going to be happy about this, that I'm over halfway done with the Jeff Lemire Bloodshot comic series.
Well, that's cool.
So, as soon as I'm done with that, those will be in your hands to check out and read.
So, that means by the time, which I haven't announced yet, our next IRC episode is going to be Jerusalem by Alan Moore. You have plenty of time to pick that up with us and start reading, right?
No.
You're not going to join in?
No. Maybe if I listen to the first couple episodes and just see how not terrible, but
if we hate it or
aggravating.
Agony. Yeah.
I figure that
agonizing.
That would be a good way to describe probably reading that book.
I read on some of the reviews, like someone said there's I think it's 11 chapters of a kid choking on a cough drop. And somebody else said there's 40 pages of Finnegan's Wake-esque talk, which is, as we talked about before, pretty much nonsense. So, and actually he posted a paragraph from it, and it was, didn't know what was going on. It was nonsense, so I don't know. I don't know how I feel.
It's literally like a death from 1,000 paper cuts.
I feel like it's going to make me want to reread Moby Dick instead of finishing that.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going to end up happening is I would rather reread Moby Dick and House of Leaves.
Well, do you even know what the story of Jerusalem is? Is there
it's magic and prostitutes and drug addicts, and it's like the history of the town he grew up in too. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of English shit I don't understand.
Yeah.
I also picked up Neil Gaiman's Graveyard book, so might just because you don't know the premise of that because you're asking about it. It starts off with a murderer in the house and kills a whole family, but the baby manages to escape because it's one of them little, I don't know if it's a toddler or just like a small baby, whatever, but it's one of those ones that likes to, climb out of its crate. It's a crib, and it ends up going to a graveyard, and the reason the book is called the Graveyard Book is it's like the Jungle Book, how Mowgli in the Jungle Book was raised in the jungle. The boy in this book, I believe it's a boy, gets raised by dead people and ghosts in a graveyard. Interesting concept.
Yeah.
And I think it's a kid's book, but it, just from obviously the first sentence, which is like a guy with a knife and then he kills a family, I think it's a little more adultly written, just not. Neil Gaiman does a pretty good job of not being offensive while still having what would I consider like offensive topics, like murdering a whole family. So that'll be interesting.
He just does it in such pretty word soup kind of way. Just it doesn't seem that heinous.
Doesn't seem that heinous. Not like my cold anus from my heinous toilet. So what's today's topic? I have an idea.
Okay.
After these messages from our sponsors.
Bidets.
If it works out, maybe I'll reach out and see if we can get some bidet sponsor. Welcome back. You are listening to the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast. I know you love it. We all do. Right?
No.
No? Nothing. Anyway, I am your host with the most, Caleb James. With me today, Spencer, the Auckland Anus Annihilator Church. Or, if you want another alias, you could be the Auckland Ass Assaulter, just to be more simplistic.
I feel like we went with Ass Assaulter, though.
Probably. I think anything to deal with bumholes, we kind of...
I feel like I've been an ass assaulter someplace else.
Oh, man. How did I never use the Birmingham bumhole butterer? That seems like a good one. Damn, that just came to me.
You guys got a twofer.
I wish my fiction it came to me as easily as these stupid fucking names.
These and the surge bits.
The surge. Surge? Did you say the S word? Do you? No, Caleb, do not go into surge.
Have you ever?
Have you ever sexually accosted Jeff Lemire in a men's bathroom? Surge! Touch the dinkle. Damn it. I was on a good streak of not doing the surge bits. Poor Jeff Lemire. He didn't deserve that. He's a good guy.
It's kind of like that old bit from that one Lucy episode where he's like, she's learning from that clown, and the clown gets like dumped from his wife, so every time they mention the wife's name, he like freaks out.
Yeah. You know, and I Love Lucy, the whole history of it, Ricky Ricardo never actually says Babaloo. Where did that come from? Remember they always say, Babaloo! Like, Ricky Ricardo doesn't say Babaloo. I don't think he does. You know what? Maybe he does.
I think at the club, I think he
did it maybe once. You know what he definitely didn't say, though? Lucy, you got some splaining to do. That he didn't actually ever say that. That's made up. That's racist horse hockey, probably.
You know what's crazy? If you ever can go and, because they've been doing every once a year, they either do a Lucy or a Dick Van Dyke or something. They take one of those old shows and they replay, but they colorized it. Mm-hmm. And you see what the fuck those people were wearing where they were filming that stuff.
Did you ever see the colorized pictures of the Munsters? Because it's black and white, everything had to be neon pink.
To get a different kind of, a weird different shade, or to make something stand out different.
Yeah, to get the hues of gray and black different. That'd be weird, because if you were just there filming, it wouldn't be at all scary. I mean, it's not supposed to be scary, but what if I'm pretty sure they did horror movies like that, probably.
Well, that's like I said, what the Lucy said, they always got the bright, a really bright jacket on with just because they needed, like we were saying, they needed to be that way so it shows up differently in the black and white.
I think we need to stop talking about 70, 80-year-old TV shows.
Okay.
Or we could just talk about that no. Today's episode is what I think is the most important writing advice that people, if you tell them that, if you're a famous writer and you told them this advice, they'd think you're just being a dickhead. They'd be like, oh, duh. Somebody asked you, what's the most important thing for an upcoming or a new writer? One, obviously, write. You say that, they won't punch you in the mouth. But if you're not writing, which we know personally, that when you're not writing, you're not doing shit. Yeah. So you got to write, which goes right into the second point, which is also super important and simplistic. You got to finish what you write.
Yep.
Doesn't matter how great of a writer you are. If you have 800 starts of a story or novel, but you never finish the fucking thing, then what are you doing here?
I mean, who's that one guy? Didn't he do that? Didn't he just...
Italio Cavini. Well, I don't know if that was... I just assume that's what happened. It was just a bunch of his manuscript. What was it? If on a Winter's Night, a Traveler, I think was the name of that book. It's just every chapter is the start of a book. But he did make it into overall narration. There's a story there about this guy trying to find this book. And each book he gets is a printing error. So regardless, he did at least cobble that together. If you want to do that, folks, you can. Just cobble all your stories together, throw them out into the world, and everyone will love you.
Well, I mean, that's that's one of the weird things with literature and or just self-publishing now and things like that. And well, he's just new age writing or stuff like that. You can do weird random things like that probably, and people wouldn't bat an eye.
Here's what now it's all the experimental fiction and stuff, and people's attention spans are so short that maybe they would love to start a new book every chapter. I don't know. When it comes to finishing a work, we'll just use a short story for an example. Obviously, if you don't finish the short story, you can't submit it anywhere. You can't. Nobody's gonna read it. I've done it. Every writer's done that a million times. We all have folders or, if you're old school, actual binders or notebooks full of just unfinished stories. But here's one point I do want to say. Here, I'll actually just ask you the question first. When do you quit on something you're working on? If it's just not... when it's dead on the page, when do you just say, you know what? I'm going to work on another project. This is done. Because I've done that a lot, but sometimes that's been a good thing. I've given up on something and end up doing something a lot better.
Yeah, it kind of depends on this. If the thing that I'm working on, I'm not feeling it, and also like if I'm haven't made that much progress on it, it's easier to just like if you've only done maybe like a page or two, and you're just like, well, I got this other idea, or this just something else seems to be coming out easier. It's I find it simpler to drop something that way, other than like if you're 20, 30,000 words into a story,
a little tougher, but
then you just and I mean, like, and it might be good to take a break from that, to just, especially if you're having trouble with it, to clear yourself out creatively with something else. But you just I find a lot of times that at least with me that I never then go back to finish the thing.
Yeah. Well, even if you don't finish something, say that 30,000 word, which is essentially like a novella at that point, even if you didn't finish, like that, say that was a novel you're writing, and you just, for whatever reason, it's dead on the page. You just, the idea you thought was good, you thought it was magical, but then when you get to it, you're just like it peters out. These things happen, but that doesn't mean you can't, when you're working on something else, use that for spare parts.
Oh, yeah.
Like an old broken down car, maybe the transmission's still good or the brakes are still good. You take parts off of that thing.
There's a character you really like.
Yeah, like a character, maybe some fucking dialogue. You can take the whole thing. Even the narration stuff. There's all kinds of things you can strip. You can just strip that story down and repurpose it. Or even the idea itself. Maybe you just wrote it the wrong way. Sometimes, which I've had this problem, is I give up on something because I realize the point of view's wrong. Or, like, say maybe I wrote it in first person and it should have been third, or vice versa. There's a lot of little things like that where it might not even be the actual story or the idea that is wrong. It's just maybe, like a good example was, I think I wrote a story once where I think the protagonist, the story was told from the point of view of a killer, I think. And, vice versa. It was the victim. It was supposed to be told from the perspective of the victim, and I started writing it, and then it started like dropping off for me. I was like, I don't know, I feel this isn't working. Realized it should have been told from the killer's perspective and made it a cooler story, and then that ended up working out. Sometimes you just, a shift like that, it's just not a big, like, it's a major change if you wrote 30,000 words and you have to go back and change all that, because like that first...
Your minor story.
Yeah, that full novella, I finished it and everything, and then on the edits, I just like, I didn't like I wrote it in present tense and I didn't like that. It wasn't working for the story, and I just never went back and changed it because it was too hard.
Now, do you think that'd be something you could do now? Like that wouldn't give you as much trouble doing now?
Yeah, I think that my skill set's definitely better.
Or would you just rather, since you've kind of wrote that story already and you kind of know what you have to do, but you just have to change it, do you think it would just be easier to just rewrite the thing?
I think, honestly, like, for that story, it would be better for me to just take it for parts. Because if I rewrote that story, it's been so long, I don't think I'd be able to get back in the same mind frame I was when I created it. And I wouldn't understand the character anymore, what he was going through. I wouldn't be able to really get into the motivations as much. And, I mean, that's a good thing sometimes, like... Because I'm always a strong proponent of, when you finish something, let it sit for a while before you do any rewrites or anything. That way you go into it almost as a reader. You go into with fresh eyes, and you kind of have to pretend like you don't know what's going to happen in the story. Like, just to see how an actual reader would judge the story versus the writer, because the writer's always going to love it. If you go into like a story like that minor story, for instance, and... you go, well, this isn't working, I'm going to change this, but you're still in the first draft. That's a lot easier than going back after the first, because I think I did a couple drafts of that story. So, like I said, it was completed, and I was ready to put it out, and then when I was doing like a final edits, I was like, because I gave it time. I let it sit, and I came back to it as a reader, and I was like, this doesn't work for me. It's just not an enjoyable read. Like, the scenes were cool, but the actual pacing and everything, and mainly the tense, and even because I think it was mostly just from the protagonist's view, and I didn't think that necessarily worked for some of the scenes I had set up. So to go back and fix all that, I think that'd be too hard. Have you ever had any problems like that where you wrote something and then you go, this would be better in first person, or, this would be better written in this way, or this would be better in a different time period.
Yeah. Well, I know that's just like some of my problems getting started with the story is figuring out that, first person, third person, past tense, you know what I mean? Like all that kind of stuff. But no, my big problem is working through something until it's finished and like just not, anything, longer than like the smaller short stories we put like on the website. Like anything longer than that is like getting a good chunk of it done and then not actually finishing it. Or, finishing the first draft to go, to give it time to sit and then do the rewrites.
Well, what kills you when it comes to not finishing a longer work? Because for me, a lot of the time, it's because I take too long between writing sessions. That's also another one that'll kill me, is I end up losing the passion for the story because, say...
You're not doing it.
Usually, I'll start hot. Like that one story I was working on for like a month or two. Like I got like 6,000 words in quick, like within a couple weeks. And I wasn't even writing every single day. I was just writing here and there. And I still got that, that out. But then it started to slog. And then like a week or two went by without me even touching it. And I would go back and I couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't get back into the story. And it's, dead in the water.
And then also too, like I also think I also had like these ideas that it's like you bite off more than you can chew with it. Like you're like, oh, I got this cool idea if you did this thing and that, and then you're trying to get into it, and then that's when you realize like the work and like the setup and just like the
One of the big kicks in the nuts is when you go into a story with a really cool idea or a really ambitious idea, and like you said, you bite off more than you chew and realize to write that story, it's above your fucking skill set. It's above your pay grade. You're not equipped to be able to write, let's say, a story that has 3 subplots and multiple character arcs that go on separately from each other and then merge at the end. If you never wrote anything close to that before, that's going to be really hard to get into. Stephen King does things like that a lot, where he'll have multiple characters and they join up.
Well, I was going to say, even Stephen King is victim to that, because like Under the Dome, like that, I remember him saying like early on, like that was an early, like that was like a early, I think like first couple book like idea that he had. And he said that he started and he was just like, I wasn't ready. He's like, I wasn't ready to do this.
Too much work. Well, that's another thing. Like, even if your job is just a writer, like say you're a Neil Gaiman type, like you're a famous, rich writer, you can still go into something like, oh, this is too much work. Like, this is more work than I'm able to give to this project in the time frame that especially have a deadline or something, the time frame I can finish it in.
See, a weird thing you can see that it play out in is like in like comics and stuff, because like you have these writers and stuff who can like do like these like really good like smaller character set pieces, but then they come to like the big like summer crossover event, like they can't do that. But like, and the guy who can do that big summer crossover event, if he had to do like a 6-pod miniseries on like some random X-Men characters that's like a big character study, like he couldn't do that. It's really weird with like a different writer's skill set and just what they're what comes naturally for them to do.
As I work more, I learn more about myself and what I'm capable of doing, and because I do like to challenge myself. I do like to write things that I definitely am going to crash and burn and maybe not finish, but I like trying it.
Yeah.
Another thing that keeps me from completing work is, and this is kind of a lesser thought of thing, is the setting. Sometimes I go, and usually more, not so much like where the story takes place, but when. And sometimes that just kills my story before I even put it to page at all, is I go, oh, this would be a cool idea, but is it modern times? Is it the 90s? Is it 1800s? Like, how am I going to tell this story in a way where, let's say, I have to be able to say, well, this is how you work around cell phones.
Yeah.
Because maybe it's a story that would work in modern times better, but I can't envision cell phones and computers being involved. Maybe it's a story that'd be cool as like an old Western, but I need technology to be able to give information to certain characters or something.
That's like we've talked about a couple episodes ago about like just like the science part when it comes into this like science fiction. Like I can't tell you how many kind of like different like sci-fi kind of ideas that I've come up with, but I've as soon as I've come up with that idea, I'm like, oh, that's a cool idea.
But the execution,
but I have no idea or like the amount of research that it would take, to even to make it sound plausible, that it doesn't make me sound like a moron.
I mean, like when we interviewed Benjamin Cross, it took him 10 years for that first novel. And granted, his work schedule obviously had a lot to do, but like the research he was saying about like submarines and stuff he didn't know about, he had to do research on, and everything you do is going to be a time suck. Now, obviously, if you have
and that's if you can stay on point and doing the research and not like, oh, I'm gonna do this is gonna be a research day.
Yeah.
And then next thing
every day's a research day.
or no, I'm saying the next thing you're watching, you're like looking up like cool anime reviews on YouTube.
Yeah. That definitely happens a lot. What about the physical act of writing? Does that ever kill your story just because the actual, for you typing, just sitting there type, sometimes like that might seem too tedious, or that's what you're not looking forward to? Like the story's cool and you don't have a problem with that, but to actually put it into the words.
Well, I can't tell you how many times I've got to be like, all right, I get home, I get a shower and everything, and I go and I unplug the laptop. I'm like, I'm going to get something to eat, and then I'm going to work on this thing, and then it just sits there on the table for the rest of the night, staring at me like a scorned lover.
I'm ashamed to admit this, but I know you'll understand. There's multiple times in my life where I sat in front of my computer, or more realistically, set it to the side because I'm like, I'm going to look something up real quick, or I'm just going to watch 5 minutes on YouTube and then I'm going to go to it. And I've actually watched, like every few 20 minutes, whatever time goes by, I've actually looked over and watched as my computer battery just goes dead. Because I don't have, I just have my screen, because we do the podcast on here, so I always have the screen just permanently on.
Yeah.
Remember when we first recorded, like one of the first few episodes, I didn't realize when it goes to sleep mode or whatever it does, like it just stops recording.
Yeah.
So I turned that off. So I literally would just watch my fucking laptop die as I'm watching horror movies and shit. And like, but I'm like, if I shut it, that cements that I'm not going to write tonight. Yeah. But if I don't shut it, of course I'm going to write. I'm always going to go over and write. I'm taking a break. I'm taking a me time. I need this right now. I'll get back to it. I'll get over there. Oh, well, I can't right now. The battery's dead. Like a charger doesn't fucking exist. So that's one of my that's my dirty little secret, is I just watch my computer die like a fucking idiot.
Just like a dirty cuck.
That's why this is gonna be hard, but I'm gonna really try to stick through it. The first novel I'm writing, I'm gonna write it in my notebook first.
Oh yeah, the whole thing,
the first draft in the notebook. Because for me, when I do that, then when I put it, like transcribe it to the computer, that's actually really easy for me.
I say, when you do that, are you basically then just looking at the notebook and just literally just typing it up?
I got mad typing skills, yo. So I don't gotta look at that goddamn keyboard. You're a henpecker. That wouldn't work for you. You're a big old henpecker. I am proficient with my 90 to sometimes 100 words per minute.
I just didn't know if you would read it, like, well, I guess it would depend on, it would be different, like, if you're doing a whole novel, because it's going to be hard to remember everything from beginning to end after, what I mean? If you did, I guess I was more thinking, like, if you wrote, like, a short story by hand, and, like, if you actually would just the act of writing it down, like, okay, now it's kind of in my head, I'm going to type it, and, like, some things might change or whatever, other than just looking like, you know what I mean, kind of like you're taking notes, kind of.
Well, another dirty little secret of mine, and we might actually talked about this before, one of my problems with writing, just like I use Google Docs normally, sometimes Scrivener if it's a longer work. One of my problems is when it comes to completing stories is my tendency to constantly want to rewrite while I'm writing. Like the next day I go back to it. On the computer, I see it and I was like, oh, well, I could just change this real quick. I could just change that real quick. Oh, this whole, I don't want to rearrange this whole scene. Yeah. I just do that to death and then the story dies. Like I just get sick of it.
But if you're doing it by hand, you can't.
And I do write it in pen, I can't change that. I mean, I could fucking cross shit out and stuff, and then, but like that would be such a hassle, then I wouldn't even get into the story at all. So I think that's going to help me, hopefully. we'll try it out. We'll see how it goes. I do get hand cramps, so that could be a little problematic, but I might get used to it. If it worked for Shakespeare and all these fools that wrote with feathers and fucking...
Well, so you don't have that round, like, neck thingy, you know.
Round neck thingy?
That, like, the big poof thing?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how that's gonna help with the hand cramps, but... I think if you wore it would help your writing.
Is there a name for that?
I'm sure there is.
Anyway, yeah, so that's my plans for the foreseeable future is, I think I'm about halfway throughout. We'll talk about this off air, but I'm about halfway through outlining the novel. Maybe not halfway. I don't know how long my novel... That's another thing is how, especially when you're writing longer works, how long do you want it to be? One thing that kills a lot of my stories, which is stupid, usually this is when it comes to things I wanted to submit or even put on the website, is story length. So if I'm like, I only have 5,000 words or 2,500 words to work with, I have to tell the whole story. I always want, like, my tendency is always to go over.
Yeah.
It's not, even though I know I'm not supposed to, especially if it's for a submission, you can't. But I always, in my head, was like, oh, I'm right over. Then I hit that mark and I'm like, well, fuck. And I have to cut shit down. Story's not even over. And I was like, yeah, fuck it. I'm just not doing it anymore. But that's kind of a stupid thing. I should still finish the story and just publish it on the site or elsewhere or whatever. But
also, you're just depending on how much time you have on the submission, just finish it and go through it because you might be able to cut things.
Yeah.
Just once you finish it, you'd be like, oh, I didn't actually need that, those couple paragraphs there. Or
for me, as long as I can finish the first draft, other than that minor story, I have no problem in the editing process and rewrites. I actually like that more than the initial writing. I can go back and change things all day. I'm happy. I can sit there for hours. It's just the initial first draft fucking sucks. It's hard to get through. It's like running a marathon in really shitty shoes. They're just like, this hurts. This is awful. I don't want to do this. But regardless, there's no reason at this point in our writing careers that we are not finishing projects.
Yeah.
Speaking of, have you finished your current project? You were making progress on it.
I was making progress on the longer story, and then now I'm closing in on just like kind of like a longer flash fiction piece for like the website, just to trying to. I was just kind of using it as like a palate cleanser to just kind of
take a break a little bit.
Take a break, and it's something different. It's kind of more of like a war sci-fi kind of thing. So it's something also a little bit different and just
It's like when you're reading a novel, you can go and read comics and it doesn't really affect the novel.
Well, that's why like you were getting on me about reading Sleeping Beauties, and I think maybe one of the reasons that I was also having trouble with that too is because I was just come off from reading like 2 novels and then trying to go into a bigger novel to where I normally have like a ratio of like I'll read like a book or 2 and then go on a string of, and stuff like that. So that was another reason why I dove into those Lemire Bloodshot books too, because I know they're a quick, easier, kind of fun read to and again a palate cleanser until I get to the next novel.
Now, do you ever find that when you start, even if it's a flash fiction story, while you're working on something else, that kills that first story? Or at least your ambition to finish writing that first story? Because I'm hit or miss with that. Sometimes it does work as a palate cleanser for me, and I go back refreshed, and I'm just like, all right, I can go back with enthusiasm and gusto. But other times I'm just, usually what happens is I'll write like a flash fiction or a short story to take my mind off of whatever else I was working on. I was like, I'll get back to that. But then new ideas pop in because of that one. Say it's like a flash fiction story. I'm like, ooh, it'd be cool. It'd be cool because usually with those, you have such a limited space that you finish them, and then your mind has all these other ideas that normally you would put into a longer work, but because it's a flash fiction, you can't. But then that makes you want to do other ones.
It kind of depends. Like again, like because I kind of had that with like the Butcher story. Both the Butcher story and Daily Rounds had like longer breaks than there should have been of being completed. Especially that first draft on those. But that's the thing. I try to at least like the longer ones. Now that there's been something well written like less of a page of something, and then went to go and start something else, and like I've never went back to that thing. It's not even a half a page left.
One thing though I have noticed, because I know a lot of writers worry about this, and it's why they don't complete stories, is say you're writing a 15,000 word story. Usually, as a writer, you go into a story, maximum overdrive. You're flying through it, and then you always hit a wall.
Yeah.
Well, say you get into the story, and initially you have a good writing sessions. Everything you're writing is fucking glorious. You just got magic coming out of your fingertips, semen coming out of your cock. You're just loving life. Then you hit that wall, and then you get those writing sessions that are just slogs. 50 words. You sit there for 2 hours and fucking 50 words come out. Or you sit there and you're just like, write, delete. And it sucks. And you have all these awful writing sessions. And then maybe if you grit through it and stick through, you get another great one. And you fucking knock out 5,000 words or something in a night. What I've noticed is no matter, because I've read some of my older stories that are like longer fiction. I forget which one. It was like
Can you
12.
tell, like, when you're reading them, like, this is must have been whenever
Well, that's
I
what
was
I'm getting
having...
to. It was like 12 or 13,000. Maybe it was the Japan story. I forget which one it is, but one of the stories I reread, I did this like a month or two ago. It was, I was looking for that exact thing. It was one story where I had a lot of struggles, especially in the middle part. And as I was reading it, I couldn't tell which part was, the shit days or the good days. It was all, because in the editing process, you fix what you shit, was shitty. And I just, you don't know. It's just your voice. It's your words. And it just comes off as the whole story. And unless you really, really fuck up and just put out garbage, your reader will be able to see that and go, oh, this is just a story. Like, they don't know that this one little scene took you 3 weeks. They don't know that you just fucking hated this one character so bad that you just completely eliminated him from the whole story. And they don't know those things. You only know those things. That's why I think it's really important that even if it's something shitty or you think it's shitty, try to finish it. Do your best to finish that story, because you never know. When you go back, it might be like, oh, that's not actually that bad. Or at worst, it'll be passable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very rare if you're an adequate writer that you're going to write a story that is, you might write something boring that nobody wants to read, but it's very rare you're going to write something that's like complete garbage.
And as we've seen, especially in these more modern times, like, it's weird what some people find that they like. And, so you never know, like, that thing you're just like, oh, this is hot garbage. Nobody and then that ends up being, that could be one of your more popular things.
I've had that. We both had that happen, where stories were just kind of shit out in a night or something that we didn't think anybody would care for. Just like one of those little random ideas. Not even one of those ideas that bugs you and sticks with you and you have to get it out. Just one of those ideas you're like, that might be cool.
That's an easy one.
And usually I write those because I'm avoiding something else that I'm supposed to be working on. So I'm like, I'll just write this idea real quick. I'm like, nobody's going to like that one. But whatever, I'll just post it in, content. And people are like, oh, that's so great. Oh my God, let me suck your dick. And we're like, whoa. Okay, but still, whoa. That never happens. Do you think that happens to, like, who's a really ugly writer but is famous?
Like, most of them?
No, that's rude. I don't want to actually insult somebody. I'm trying to think of a writer that's a dickhead.
Can you name a handsome writer?
Neil Gaiman's pretty handsome.
He's British. It doesn't count.
A lot of writers are distinguished. This actually goes on to another topic, just because we're talking about sexy Neil Gaiman. This will be a complete sidebar from what we're actually talking about. But I wanted to do an episode on this, but I didn't really want to, like, shit on the youth or even us. But I will bring it up. I just want to pose this to you. Can you name any really famous superstar authors under the age of 40?
Probably not.
Okay. Can you name any super famous superstar authors under the age of 30? No.
Probably not. Well, so to be fair, though, I'm not
reading modern.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not the hip, trendy.
Well, here's the thing, though. If you're super famous,
I couldn't name you like any like top like famous music people now either. So.
Yeah, but here's where I'm getting at. I think Stephen King wrote Carrie published Carrie when he was like 26, 28 or something. Neil Gaiman had a bunch of shit out when he was in his 20s. Hemingway was a superstar in his 20s. Like, it seemed like in the older days, these writers got big in their 20s and became household names, whereas now, I mean, who was the last one to do that? Maybe like J.K. Rowling. I mean, I guess you could say like a Stephanie Meyer, though I don't know how old she is. I just assume she was younger when she wrote Twilight, but I don't. Well, I just don't think it's the same now.
Well, I think that might have to do with also back then you didn't have as many people writing.
And the medium was more popular because TV and stuff wasn't as big as it is now.
Yeah, and especially back then, too, like, a 20-year-old's voice on something, it could be compelling, or, like, like, a 20-year-old's voice now on something, like, shut the fuck up, you don't know anything.
That's because 20-year-olds in Hemingway's time were fucking, like, war veterans and stuff. And now, you do have young veterans, but it's not the same. They weren't in World War II or anything.
And then also, my other part to that is, too, is also now that, like, how not that many people back there now, but everybody wants to be a writer now. It takes so much longer. You know, our new buddy Benjamin Cross, we were just saying, took him 10 years to get that first novel wrote, and maybe if it doesn't take you that long to write it, but to get it, you know, worked out, and to try to find an agent and a publisher to get your first big thing put out there, like, it's not.
That's why so many just indie publish, which saturates the market with fiction too, and it's tough out there. I don't know.
So it's hard to describe or just to figure out what's good and what's not good.
Yeah. I just thought that was interesting because it just doesn't seem like the younger generation, like people in their 20s now, are creating at least fiction.
You know what I would like to go to? I would like to go to a book convention or a fair, but like not like the ones because we've seen those ones but it's more on the writing. I want more like it's like a comic convention, but it's books. So it's just floor full of writers with tables with their work, just like, hey, this is what I'm doing.
That'd be interesting.
I think that would be cool. Like you could get a lot of different kind of people, in their work. I think that'd be interesting.
Isn't that what that Dragon Con's kind of like?
Maybe, I don't know.
But I think it's like sci-fi. See, here's the thing. Any convention that I've seen kind of like that is usually just not even genre fiction, usually sci-fi specifically. Maybe there's also fantasy, like sci-fi and fantasy. They have conventions.
Well, I think those are the more people likely to go to those things.
Yeah,
like I don't know,
which makes sense.
Like a drama, like people, literature. Though I think literature people might because they like to get together and smell their own farts.
Smell good. Smell nice when you got an ice cold bidet shooting freezing water in your bumhole. Last topic of conversation before we end this: what role? And this is actually a big one because I would say it's a big one for me, obviously, probably for you too. What role does technology play in you not finishing work? If you didn't have TV, streaming, movies, mainly YouTube, your phone at all, even a fucking laptop that has easily distractions, social media.
Well, because that's the double-edged sword there. It's like the technology that's stopping me from writing, but also if there wasn't that technology, I probably wouldn't write at all.
Yeah.
Because as I've said before, like I could, like if all we had to write was like typewriters, never,
be done?
No, I wouldn't even try.
Means you don't want it bad enough. Means you're not cut out. Means
probably
you're a puss boy. I don't know. I can pick on you for 8 hours in a row. This podcast is really long. It's 8 hours, and it's just Caleb yelling at Spencer. Call him a puss boy over and over again. I would write because I just enjoy that act of writing. And I like typewriters. I actually thought over the years buying a typewriter like a pompous douche. My problem is the whole ink.
Yeah.
And it takes longer. What's the point when you got a computer?
Well, I'm just with my spelling and grammar and stuff like that. It'd be a waste to the rainforest.
Like, Spencer, I don't know how you managed this, but I think you just wrote a series of Chinese haikus. Like, what is this supposed to say?
I don't know, man. This is why I need the squiggly lines.
I need the squiggly lines, man. They're very important.
The red ones are when I spelled something, and the blue ones are when I just say something funny.
You know what ones are evil? The green ones. When you come across the green one, you know you're done fucked up. Like, this one's orange. What is that? What can that possibly mean? Look it up. Orange just means don't write ever again. No.
Don't you like whenever when you get the red squiggly line and you go up to it to see what, and it's just like, like the computer's just like, I don't know what you were trying to do here, but.
You know what I'd like to see become a thing, because I think it would be hilarious? woke culture meets editing technology. So you just get like fucking squiggly line, like rainbow squiggly lines mean you're being a little homophobic. Like black squiggly line means you're being racist. Like just different color squiggly lines. It just means like you're doing off. Like they finally have some kind of algorithm that could just, predict what you're doing. Like even if it's just like accidental racism or it would be endless too. There'd be so many. Maybe we should create that. Everyone would hate us, but we'd make a lot of money.
I'm sure that's something we could easily do.
Oh my god, I would just love to put like a Hemingway book through that and just like the sexist color, whatever that one is.
Could you imagine putting like a H.P. Lovecraft or
just lights up on fire? Robert E. Howard.
Yeah, put an old Conan story in there. Mm-hmm. Especially those late ones.
Good lord. Like, well, you can't even read this to edit it because it's just a bunch of colors. Like all the letters are just squiggled out now. The whole system just crashes and burns. Anyway, folks, if you have a problem finishing your work, well, fucking fix it. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty more reasons we can come up with, but I think, like I said, the two most important things for a writer, writing and finishing what you write. Because if you don't do those two things, nothing else matters. Like, you want to give somebody a writing advice, those are the two things you have to do. Now, if you do those two things and you still aren't making it as a writer, well, that's a topic for another day. There's plenty of, usually, and I'm going to steal this one from Neil Gaiman, it probably means you need to go out and experience life more, because you might just not have anything to talk about. Yeah, you might have stories that you think are kind of interesting, but, for somebody who's actually out living, they read that and they're just probably bored.
Well, I mean, just look at anything like Hunter H. Thompson wrote.
Yeah, he really was living. He's living hard. If you folks want to check out some of our fiction, you can head on over to drunkenpenwriting.com. Do we have anything new? Not recently. I don't think so. We had some stories the last couple weeks. I got a couple more submissions floating around too, I think, but I don't know. You can check us out on Twitter, where if you don't follow us, we will follow you home with a knife. No, sorry. That's Graveyard Book again.
In the dark.
Whoa, that's just fucking wrong. I like them to see it coming in the daytime, not the night. Drunk Pen Writing at Twitter. Instagram and Facebook, Drunken Pen Writing. And YouTube at We Don't Post Videos because Caleb needs an editor because he doesn't feel like doing it. Spencer, why don't you just fucking take a video editing class so you can do it for me? Either that or you record the videos and I edit them. One of the two. How's your broadcaster voice work? You've been working on that secretly.
Still shitty.
See, that's where I would just dub in like the dude from The Simpsons or something.
Yeah.
Who has a great you know what? Fucking who cares? Anyway, folks, thanks for listening. DPW out. Sorry, I just want to be like Jocko, your buddy. That's what he always says?
I don't know. I never listened to his.
I'm pretty sure he always says Jocko out.
That seems
every time I'm just like douche.